Book and pen. We'll need it for today's session. So, time management. So, before we start, a warm welcome for everyone who has joined. I see some new comers have also joined today. So, a warm welcome to everyone. So, today's topic is time management, and this group we're calling it as red carpet. Red carpet because you are special. So, every one of us is special. You are special. So, that's the reason this group is called as red carpet. And today's topic is time management. So time management is a very essential thing because everyone has only 24 hours, right? In school or college, if you take a person who's getting first rank or a student who's getting first rank and a person who's excelling in sports, they are also having 24 hours. A person who's finishing last in the class is also having 24 hours. So the only difference is the amount of interest the person has in either studying or sports or whatever domain or field, and the person's interest and skill levels, but the time is the same, right? So time for the first rank student is also 24 hours. Time for the person who's coming last is also 24 hours. Person who's coming 10th is also 24 hours. So let's say the person who's coming first and the person who was coming 10th are having equal amount of interest to excel, equal amount of interest to get high marks, but only one person is able to do, other person is not able to do. Forget the person who's coming last, he is not having interest at all. Let's say the interest is equal level, but only one person is excelling, other person is not excelling. One of the reasons for that is the effective time management. The person who's coming first is effectively managing his 24 hours. The person who's coming 10th, though his interest is there, he's not able to manage his time effectively, and hence he's not getting that first mark. So this is not only for students, this is also when it comes for job work kind of a scenario, wherein somebody is able to manage the time effectively and they finish the work in time and also have some free time left. A person who's not managing time properly will be struggling to complete and unnecessarily taking more stress and will not be able to deliver work in time. So either you're a student or you're a working professional, time management is very essential. Either you're working in a government kind of an organization or you're working in a private sector or you run your own business, time management is very essential because it's only 24 hours, right? Even if you are ready to pay all your wealth that you have saved till now, right? You will not be able to get back even 1 second of the time that is past. You will not be able to get back 1 second that is past. So such is the cost of the time. So time that is past, you will not be able to get it back no matter how much money you are willing to spend, right? So let's see what are the universal principles of time management and how effective people are utilizing this time effectively for their studies or for their work. So I will have a task. I want you to draw a flower. The only challenge here is you should draw it in 30 seconds. Okay. So the time starts now. So you already have your pen and paper. So please start drawing a flower. So 10 seconds is over. Hope you have your pen and paper completed. Okay. Okay. That is good. So we are 25 seconds. Somebody has joined. Okay. So who has completed? You don't have to show me your flower, but your flower might look something like this. It will be a sunflower. You didn't share your camera, right? But still, I knew what you're drawing. So I'll just open this paint. I'll draw it. New diagram. Somebody's joined. So your drawing might be something like this, and it has feathers around it. So something like this would be your drawing, correct? So why did we? There are so many flowers. Why did we draw a sunflower? Your drawing might be something like this. Okay, and most of you have drawn that sunflower. So why did we draw that sunflower thing? Yeah, exactly. For the given time, it is this. So time is of essence. Most of us would have drawn a sunflower. Probably somebody would have drawn a rose max at the max. So 30-second time, when the time is there, when the time is of essence, we try to do it something, what I can say, something not so good. So, somebody is trying to join. So I request people to join on time, because if you're joining late, it's just like kind of just interrupting the session. So when time is of essence, right? So when time is of essence, we generally try to try to get the easier path. If there was time more, probably would have drawn a pot with the flower, or somebody who's a little artistic, maybe would have drawn a rose or anything. So this flower of sunflower is the most easiest thing to draw, right? So when the time is critical, and there was also peer pressure, I was giving a countdown, 10 second is over, 15 second is over, and somebody in the call said, no, I have finished the flower. So when this peer pressure is there, we tend to do something that is very quick to do. Given the time, we would have probably drawn something different, or somebody who's not so good at drawing, somebody who's like me, even if you give half a day, I will still draw that same sunflower only, right? So time is of essence, and interest is of essence. So if you have the right interest, you'll find ways to do things. So next time somebody asks to draw a flower, think of a different flower if possible. Here is an experiment that happened on the time jar. Okay. Yeah. So hope you're able to see the video. So here's the experiment. So they have taken a jar and filled sand with it. Some of you might have already seen this experiment, because anywhere they talk about time and priority management, this experiment will be there. So they have taken a jar and filled it with sand, and then they take small stones and they try to fill it. This is a very important experiment to understand priorities and time in life. So they filled it with sand, which are the finer particles. Then they filled it with small rocks, small pebbles, and then they started filling with the bigger rocks. So when they do it in this sequence, it so happens that some of the rocks are still left out. Somebody is trying to join, but it's not able to join. So I'll just wind it back a bit. So when we are going in this sequence, they're adding the sand, then they're adding the pebbles, then they're adding the rocks. So they end up finishing with some rocks not filled. So if you see, the jar is full in a way that they cannot put any big rocks anymore, but still they're left out with some rocks in the tank, in the can. So this part you understood, right? So when you put sand first and then you put smaller stones, and then you're trying to fit in big rocks will not fit in. There will be some big rocks left in that. Now let's try to do the same experiment in the reverse order. So we put the big rocks first, and then we put the smaller rocks. So you have completed all the big rocks. everything, all the big rocks are fit in. Now we'll put the small rocks. So no more big rocks left. So we are putting the small rocks or the pebbles. So they are finding places in between the big rocks. There are gaps. So the small rocks are finding place to go inside. Now we put the sand. So in between the big rocks and the small rocks, there are some places through which the finer particle, that is the sand, is slipping through, and we have nothing left out. When we did the same experiment in the reverse order, when we put the sand first, and then the pebbles, and then the rocks, then we had bigger rocks left over. When we do it in this order, when we place the bigger things first, the smaller things will always find place and time. So this is an example, best example to explain what is priority, to explain how time effective time management is. So in all our life, the big rocks will be different. For somebody it may be different, for somebody it may be something else. Say for a student who's weak in maths, your your big rock is your max, because you have to allocate time for that. So this experiment everyone understood, right? So the big things you place first, you big things you allocate time first, small things will find their way. If small things you start allocating time, you will definitely be left out with some big things. So these big things or the big rocks are different for different people. For a student who's weak in max, maybe his big rock is that max. He has to allocate more time for max. Somebody who's very good in max, probably it is not the big rock for him, it is the small sand for him. So assume that jar is your time, right? So the jar is a time, your 24 hours that is you have. Identify what is big rock for you. It could be different for you, it could be different for me, it could be different for somebody else. For a working person, it will be different. For a married person, it will be different. For a school going kid, it will be different. For a person in college, it will be different. For a person who's interested in sports, it will be different. For everyone, the big rocks are different. So identify your big rocks and allocate time for them. Place them first. When you do this, the smaller things will find its place. So this is of essence. So allocate time for the bigger things. The smaller things will find its place. Like how in the example we saw that sand is finding its place. Sand you don't have to allocate, because in the between big rocks and the small rocks there is place through which the sand will pass through. Similarly, you allocate time for the most important big thing in your life, the smaller things will find its place. Unfortunately, what we are doing is we are allocating time for the smaller, lesser important things, because of which the big things are left out. What is the big rock for you that you only have to decide? Maybe a senior can help you out to identify what are the big rocks around you. But big rock is something that you have to allocate for your priority. Say for a student, let's say he's weak in maths, so you have to allocate more time for maths. Say science is easier for you, or the history subjects are easier for you, language are easier for you. So when that is easier, you don't have to allocate time for that separately. The time will find, or even lesser time is enough. But if you are weak in maths, you have to allocate time in math for that. If you want to be a sports person, you have to allocate time for that. Because let's say a person start doing this finger snap. He does this snapping for 10,000 times a day. So somebody is very interested in this thing. So he does this snapping for 10,000 times a day every single day of his life. After a few years, what will happen? He will be the best person who can snap in the entire world. If somebody is say tapping, he's taking a phone and tapping. He does this 10,000 times a day, right? What will happen is he will be the best person in the world to do this, tapping the phone on the hand. Whatever you want to be the best in that, you have to allocate time. You want to be the best parent, allocate time for that. You want to be the best programmer, you want to be the best person in your domain of whatever front end or back end or microservices or management. Whatever you want to be best, you start, that is your big rock. This is one a universal thing I can say is, whatever is you want to be best in that, that is your big rock. Allocate time for that. When you allocate time for that, the other things will find its place. Okay. So moving further in the presentation. So this time jar, I think everyone understood. If you put the sand first, then you put the small pebbles, and then you put the big rocks, a lot of big rocks will be left over. When you put the big rocks first, then the pebbles, and then the sand, your jar will be filled, and so there'll be some gap for other things to come into that. So this is how effective people manage their time. So all this is this extract is taken from the very famous book by Stephen Covey called as the Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. So this was a book that came out in the 80s and 90s, and a very most popular personality development book that is ever sold. And this is an extract from that. So here he talks about this principle of priority and time management. So 24 hours is the same, but if you change the sequence, you will have some free time left. If you are going in the wrong sequence, you are putting unimportant things first, then you will miss out on things. So you have the sheet of paper, right, which I asked you to. So in that you start to create a chart like this. So in that you put the tasks, you put how much time you want to allocate it for that task, and when do you want to do it. For example, I'll give an example. Say, let's say a person is weak in max. So let's say he wants to improve that. That is his big rock. So identify the big rocks for you. So it could be work related. It could be, say, let's say somebody, for somebody family is important. Say for somebody they want to learn a new technology, right? Somebody wants to be a YouTuber. Put that. Somebody wants to do learn farming. So put that. Whatever is big rock for you, that only you have to decide. That others cannot do. So let's say max is your big rock, and I want to allocate 1 hour, and how often? Every day. Every day I want to allocate 1 hour for this, and I will be an expert in this subject when the time comes. Every day I want to spend 4 hours for my family. I'm just giving some examples, right? So every day I want to learn farming, but I'll not be able to do every day. So I'll allocate 4 hours at least weekly. Getting the point? So this way you write it down. So I'll give you some time. So in that sheet of paper, you start writing down. Of course, you can think over it and change it, discuss with your superior, discuss with your friends, family, parents. Then you want to change it, but at least write it down. Why I ask you to write it down is if you write it down, only then it will be there. Otherwise, what will happen is after a few hours, we will forget that one session like this happened. After a few days, we will forget that one person Bala Vijay was giving a session like this, right? So if you don't want to forget, in that sheet of paper, you write it down. Later on, you can move it to your diary or whatever. But for now, create this table. Put all the tasks that is your big rocks. What is the big rocks? As I told, the most important things for you in life. It will be different for different people. Write it down. I've given some examples, some random things that came to my mind. So take a few minutes, write it down. You can change it later, but I would recommend you to do this. So I'll give you 5 minutes to put down these tasks. This is not that the initial experiment we saw to draw, sunflower. This is not time critical thing, but I wanted to put it into an action, right? Call for action. So in that sheet, start writing. So I'll give you 5 minutes. Okay. Dark message. I'd like to give priority to science and become best in science. Scientist ஆகணும். எல்லாரும் எழுத சொல்லி. So hope you are making a note of it. Completed? Very good. We'll just give one more minute. It's important to write it down because if you don't write it down, you will forget it. You'll forget that one session like this happened. You'll forget that one person was there, Bala Vijay. You write it down. I'll tell you what to do next. Hope you're able to see my screen. So you write it down, and now you have to make. Hope you're able to see my screen. Write it down, and now make copies of it. Okay. So when you finalize, probably you may take some time to finalize. So once you finalize, once you've listed down all the things that you wanted to do in life, all the big rocks for you, it can change from time to time. When you're school, you may think this is your big rock, but when you come to college, you think no, this is not my big rock. My big rock is something else. So it can change from time to time, which is absolutely fine. But write it down, make copies of it, and stick it near your bed. Stick it in a place where you can see when the moment you get up in the morning. That's what you have to. You have to see it. So stick it in the wall that is opposite to your bed. Stick it in your book, in your rough notebook, or in your laptop. You make a small note of it and stick it on your laptop. So wherever it is very easily accessible for you, which it will keep you reminding. Because if it's not there in the mind, it will be out of the sight, right? Out of sight, out of mind. This is a famous proverb that you might have heard. If it's not in your sight, it will go out of your mind, and if goes out of your mind, it will go out of your life. So if you don't want to lose focus of that, write it down and keep it in multiple places. Doesn't matter. Keep it in front of your bed. Stick it on your laptop. Stick it everywhere. This will keep reminding you what is your big rock and that you have to allocate time for that. When this happens, right, automatically you will allocate time for your big rocks, and the small pebbles and sand will find their way. You don't have to allocate time for that, right? We saw that in the experiment. You don't have to allocate time for sand and pebbles. You have to allocate time for your big rocks. Allocate time for your big rocks, and the pebbles and the sand will find its time. It's not that you'll be missing out of something in life. The sequencing is important. You put the sand first, you put the pebble first, you'll not have time for rocks. This is where many people miss it. So put the big things first, small things will find their time. So let's say somebody wants to become good in science. Say they're already good, but they want to improve it, or they're not good, they want to improve it. So from textbook you will get some knowledge, but that is not all the knowledge. That is just a limited. That is what the government expects you to learn minimum. So whatever is coming in your textbooks, right, that is a bare minimum thing, very very minimum thing that is there, that is expected. Let's say a student is studying in Bangalore, and he or she has a science textbook and wants to become a scientist in the future. So reading your textbook is the minimum the government expects. You may read the textbook and completely, and you can score 100 out of 100. But if you want to be a scientist, that is definitely not enough. That is a very very minimal that the government expects. Whatever is there in your textbook, that very very minimal. What you have to do is you have to try to access what the other students are studying in the neighboring state. In the state of Tamil Nadu, what are the students that are studying? Is their standard of science or max equal to you, better than you, lesser than you? Is the, if you're in a state syllabus, is the CBSE syllabus better than you? are greater than you, or is it lesser than what you're studying? So try to access the other things, and today's technology, all everything is available online. So this is with respect to student. If you're a working profession, your company expects you to do some set of things, met expectation, right? They ask you to work 8 hours, they ask you to know these things. That is just at one level, right? That's a bare minimum that is expected out of you. You are like in a shell. In that shell you are the king, but outside world can be very very different, can be much better than what you are doing, or can be lower than either way. But you should know what the other company they are doing, what are the technologies that they are working. If technology is something that is your thing in your company, let's say you have done all the things that is possible, but is it the best thing to do, is it the best practice? So if you want to increase your technical skills, working your 8 hours job is bare minimum that is expected. If you want to go beyond expectation, you should try to meet the other people who are also in the similar kind of thing, and try to understand and ask them what is their company doing, right? What are the other company, what are the Facebooks of the world doing, what are the flank companies doing? We call them flank companies, right? Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, Google, and the other technology leaders. So what are they thinking? So this is a one very interesting thing that happened to me in my career. So we had one competitor, and our product was also something similar to them. So domain wise both are similar, both are where e-commerce into fashion domain. So domain wise both are kind of equal. They had a better product which looked better, which was performing faster. So we kept that in mind, and we started building something better than that. So when we are trying to build better than that, so one thing came to my mind. Today I am trying to build a product that is better than my competitor in this point of time. But what my competitor is doing, that I don't know. He might be in the behind the scene, he might be working something better than what I'm trying to do. So let's say he is doing one, I'm trying to do one plus. I'm thinking that my one plus will compete with his one, because one plus no is better than his one. Say let's say minus two, but I am competing with his yesterday. He behind the scene is actually making five, so he is raising the bar. Getting the point? So if you do your job, if you do your thing, if you learn whatever is there in your front of you, that is just the bare minimum. You have to know what he is doing. If he is doing five and you are doing just two, you will always be in this catch up game. When he brings out his five, then in front of his five your two will look very very small. Don't compete with Google what Google is doing today. Compete with Google what Google is going to do tomorrow. That is very important, right? Raise the bar. So whatever you're learning, your textbook is not enough. You have to see what the other students are learning, what the CBSE students are learning, what the ICC students are learning. You should get an idea. If you want to be a scientist, your learning scale, horizon should be more than your limited scope. Similarly, for working profession, you have to raise the bar. You have to see what other companies are doing. You are just seeing Google what it is doing today, but when your product comes, it you will the Google will bring a product which is much better than you. So you're always competing with yesterday's Google. You're not competing with tomorrow's Google. Then you'll always be in the catch up game. You will never catch up. The gap between you and what you want to catch up will always be increasing. So you prepare for your future competitions, not prepare for the present. Of course you have to prepare for the present, because that is the break even. But if you want to be in context, then you have to prepare for the future competition, and this will help. If you identify the big rock, start allocating time for that, start preparing for its future of it, and then it will be in relevance. The smaller things will find its place. One very important thing in life is Sachin versus Dravid. This is an example I often give. So we all know Sachin and Dravid. Some of you who are younger may not know them very well. So Sachin was a very gifted player, as we all know, and everything's all the stars aligned for him at the right time. At a very young age, his brother identified his special talent. He put it into coaching. In 14 years, he was playing Ranji Trophy. In 15 years, he was in 16 years he was playing for India. So a lot of things aligned to him. So you can say that Sachin was destined to be successful. It's not that he didn't put hard work or anything like that. He put all his hard work and all the things that, but a lot of things aligned. So there were no other examples like Sachin. So before that, a 16-year-old making international debut was something that unheard of, right? So a lot of things aligned to him. The right time, the right coach, the right time, the right channel. He played for Mumbai, so his career was fast tracked. Probably if he had played for some other state, probably it wouldn't have been such fast track. So a lot of things aligned, and he was no destiny's child. So he's Sachin. When you say Sachin, what I mean is it is not a job anymore. It is something that he loved to do. He knows what he is his domain. Most of us, we don't know our domain, and even if we know our domain, all the stars are not aligned to things. So a lot of some 10 steps have to happen for a person to become like that. All of us are Sachin. Unfortunately, we don't know what is our field. This is what I would put. So for that to happen, a lot of stars, a lot of things have to be happen. So that may not happen in everyone's case. Sachin was successful because he was destined to be successful. On the other hand, Dravid, if you see Dravid, he was not as gifted as Sachin Tendulkar. His career was not as fast tracked as Sachin Tendulkar, but he was also successful. He was successful because he was determined to be successful. In 1 billion, probably one Sachin Tendulkar will come, but in 1 billion, all the 1 billion can be Dravid if you are determined. So that is the difference. Hard work, determine, and you will achieve it. So how is all this related to time management? Most of the time, some they will say, if I had more time, I would have done that. If I had more time, I would have got the 100 marks or 90 marks. The same time is there for everyone. We use it effectively and don't give up. You try for some time and then you give up, then it is not. You're not going to end up. If you fix that is this is a big rock, then keep persisting with it. Be persistent, patient, and determined. Then you will be Dravid. Everybody will not be that gifted to become that Sachin, but everybody can become Dravid. That's the difference, right? When you see Dravid play, you know that how much hard work and effort he has put. In the 2003 World Cup, I think Sachin never had even a single net session. He never had, have a net session at all. He just had a great touch, and he won the man of the series for that, right? But unfortunately, we are not having all those stars aligned. But on the other hand, if you're determined to be successful, you will be successful, right? So hard work and persistent will help you reach places. So the next topic also comes from the book of Stephen Covey, The Seven Effective Habits. So basically, we have four boxes. On the on the x-axis we have urgency. On the y-axis we have importance. So important but not urgent. This box is the most important thing. Okay, it's important but it's not urgent. Meaning it is not immediately pressing you to do something. It's important and it is urgent. Meaning you have failed to plan. If you, so all the activities that you do, try to put it into these boxes. So if something is important and urgent, meaning your exam is tomorrow, your exam is important, and it is urgent because you have not prepared for it. So in the tomorrow is your exam, and today you're sitting and trying to read, which means you are in a crisis, right? Some of the crises we cannot avoid, but most of the crises we can avoid if we had planned it earlier. It is important, yes. To exam will be there, or project deadline will be there. It is important, but if I start working well in advance, then in the last day of deployment, I will not be sitting and removing all the console logs and removing the alerts and writing test cases. If you're writing test cases with tomorrow release, that means you have failed to plan. It's important and it's urgent. It's on the neck. But if you have planned it in advance, you know the deadline is there. It is important, but you start working, breaking into smaller pieces, and start working towards it. Then you'll be achieving it. The third box, which says not urgent but important. So it's kind of similar thing. Not urgent, not important. These are basically the waste of times. Are good to have, kind of things. Say suppose IPL match is there. Every day 3.5 hour one match will be there. Total around 50 plus matches are there. 50 into 3.5, and with presentation all it becomes 4 hours. So 50 into 4 hours, which means what? More than 200 hours of your time you're going to waste on that. You can do that if that is your job. Say, suppose you're a commentator or you're aspiring cricketer, you want to understand the game better. So if you're related to cricket, then okay, you can watch all those matches. But if you're not related to cricket, or you're not going to make a cricket as your profession, or you're into commentary or any of these things, then it is going to be a waste of 2.5 hours. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't watch the matches. You can watch the highlights, or you can watch some of the important matches. Just give me a break. I'll just have some water. Right. So reduce the number of work activities that you have to do into this box, which is neither urgent not important. The fourth box is the emergency crisis. It is urgent, but it is not important. Let's say nature's call. It is urgent. You have to answer it, but it's not something that is very important. So this the box four is something that you cannot kind of avoid. The box three is kind of a leisure time. Watching mindless TV shows. The people who say I don't have time are the same people who will watch all the matches in the IPL and waste 200 hours of their time, and then they'll say I don't have time for exam. Right? So it is neither important nor urgent. Even if you don't match a IPL match, nothing is going to happen. But still, you go ahead and watch it. The second box, that is important and urgent, meaning you failed to plan. Your planning has gone for a toss. Because of that, there is sudden emergency that is there, and it is urgent and important. It is forcing you to do the work. Ideal case is all your big rocks, the 7 big rocks or whatever big rocks that you have, you should be put into this first box, wherein it is important, but it's not urgent. Meaning, there is a project deadline, but it's not that tomorrow. There is, say, 1 month or 2 weeks sprint, or there is 6 months time. So there is time. So I'll start planning and working it in a way that when that day comes, I am well prepared. For a student, it is like I start preparing in advance, so that when that day comes, I will be prepared. Not that the last day I sit and study. Some more examples with these boxes we'll be able to urgent try to understand better. So here the boxes are slightly interchanged. So here the box 4 has come to this first place. So the timelines are slightly different here. So the box 3 is come to the first one here. Am I seeing it right? Yeah. Urgent and important. No, urgent and important. Box 1 has come. Box 2 has become 1 here. So urgent and important, emergencies, deadlines, the last minute preparation, right? If you're having more things in urgent and important, meaning you're failed to plan. Something that is important but not urgent, all your 7 rocks should be here, right? You're preparing in advance. You have clarity in your values, right? If you're a person, building, if you want to be a good person, so building relationships with friends, right? So these are all take time. It is important, but it's not urgent, right? The not important and not urgent box, the unnecessary interruptions, IPL matches, right? So you're sitting and working. Suddenly there will be a WhatsApp pop up, something that comes. Immediately you will stop your studying, and then you'll switch to that WhatsApp message, and you start one message, and then one becomes two, two becomes three. You'll end up spending 1 hour. Same thing goes with YouTube also. In the previous lecture, I told that YouTube is one of the best source to learn anything new, but it is also the best source to kill your time like anything, right? You start watching one video, then it becomes second, then becomes third. Then by the time you realize, you have already wasted 1 hour by watching so many unnecessary waste of time videos. YouTube definitely is one of the best resources to learn, but it is also the best resources to waste your time. So depending upon how you use it, either YouTube is in your this not important and not not urgent box, right? So basically, this is kind of uh, a brief about how to place your priorities and time. So most of our activity should be here, meaning it is important, but I've planned it in a such a way that it has not become urgent. Though it is a very big problem, I have broken it into smaller pieces. I have allocated time properly for it, so that when the day of exam comes, or when the day of delivery comes, or when the day of important comes, you are ready for that. You have understood what is important and you have broken it down so that it doesn't become urgent. If you fail to do this activity, you will end up here, meaning it is important, project deadline is important, exam is important, but you have not planned it. On the day of exam you will be left with a lot of portions to cover, and you will be in a very difficult situation. So avoid into this, try to be in this important and urgent. Best place to be is this: you started planning in advance, you started allocating things in advance, and this will be the best place to be. It's important but it's not urgent. And minimize your activity into this box which says not urgent and not important. Watching mindless YouTube videos for hours and hours together, this time you can utilize for lot of other effective things. So to know what are the lot of effective good things, you should first make this table wherein you have identified and allocated the lock. So when you allocate this, right, when you have free time, after watching your second video, you will think, oh no, I have not given my 1 hour for my max. I have not given my 4 hours for my farming. I have not given my 2 hours for my tech builder. So this way, when you are in this box of not important, not urgent, you should immediately come back to your box of important and not urgent. These things might be slightly confusing, but when you read more about it, you'll get it. You'll get more clarity about it. And of course, if you can reach out to me if you have any if you need any clarifications to try and understand things. So just summarize the whole thing. We started by drawing the flower, and every one of us draw the sunflower because of time criticality, and even otherwise also, even if you give me half an hour, I will still draw that same sunflower because that's the only flower I can draw. The idea here is not how good an artist you are, but how time criticalness and peer pressure drives us to do something that is not necessarily the best thing that we can do. Then we saw the time jar video, wherein you put the sand first, then the pebble first. You'll be left out with so many big rocks. But you reverse the order, place the big rocks first, then you put the pebbles. Pebbles between the rocks, the gap, the pebbles will find. And when you put sand in that, between the rocks and pebbles, there is smaller gaps, and the sand will fill. And in the jar, you will be left out with some places, empty space left for other things to add on. Similarly, we have to identify what is a big rock for us in life, so that we can allocate time for that. And when you allocate time, prepare a chart and stick it into multiple places. So if you have a laptop and you're using laptop daily, create a sticky note of it and stick it in your laptop. Keep it as your wallpaper mobile. Stick it in the wall in front, opposite side of your your bed. Keep it in multiple places so that it will continuously remind you what are your big rocks and you have to allocate time for it. So you can create a chart like this, and if you need some help, you can ask your parents or superiors, or you can reach out to me. So probably will try to understand, help you out with what is your priority and how much time you should allocate and how often. Some things you may not be able to allocate every day, make it into weekly. Some things you will not be able to allocate weekly, make it into a monthly thing. At least in a month I should spend so much time for this, because when you spend more time on that, only then you'll become an expert in that. So this we saw with the help of Sachin and Dravid's example. Not everybody will be Destiny's Child, where all the stars are aligning together and you have a freeway walk in the park. But all of us can become Dravid, because if we have determination, persistent, then we will be successful. Then we saw this example of the four different box of importance and urgence. The best box to be is, it is, I know what is important, but I've planned in such a way that it will never become urgent, right? But if it is something that is important and urgent, meaning we have failed to plan, so we should concentrate more on this. The third box is something leisure time. Just in a day, what are the activities you do, try to put it in the different boxes. If you are putting more things into this box of not important, not urgent, then you'll have to recalculate and reassess your thing. If you're putting more things into this important and urgent, means you have failed to plan and you have to do something here. It is urgent but not important. Most of the time we don't have control on this box. Box number 4, basically crisis, like either nature's call, or suddenly there is a new requirement from the client, though your deadline was 3 months down the line, but the client says today I want to see a version of the product. So this is something that you don't have control on it, so it has become urgent. It may or may not be important. So the box 4 is something that you don't have control on. So but if you have a lot of things in this box 3 and box 2, you should go back to box 1 and try to plan it together. So with this, I'll end my presentation. um, yeah. So let me know if you anyone has any question or needs any clarification on any particular slide.